All right. Hello. This is the 11th Nixpkgs architecture team meeting. Also, NAT is probably a better acronym for this because Nixpkgs architecture team is hard to write and to say. But yes, today I'm going to be recording, live streaming. Also going to take some notes. Leading the meeting, and yes. So just the first thing real quick, last time, or I feel like in general, meeting every week and that for an hour is probably a bit too much, especially last time we didn't really have too much to talk about, and I'm thinking we could maybe shorten the meetings to 30 minutes for now.
That actually the meetings, reporting meetings can be shortened. However, we might as well organize some meetings for actually co-working and doing stuff.
Yes. That is exactly what I was going to say. I think I've talked about it briefly on Matrix before, but I kind of expect the sync calls, which is what this effectively is, to be fairly short and succinct, for the lack of a better word, and for there to be more work groups. Like once we actually start doing things that require people to work together separately, they can organize however they want with their own meetings if they wish, or some other form of communication, which in turn keeps these meetings short and to the point.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I mean, yeah, let's do it. Do you think? I mean, we've had these meetings for an hour up to now. I think 30 minutes for now might be good.
I think so. Either way, it's mostly just about how much time people block out in their calendars. If we get done early, then we get done early, and at least I personally don't mind if one day we have a lot to discuss and we go 10 or 15 minutes over. That's fine by me. I assume others will have their own opinions.
I'd say that the good thing about long meetings is basically that anyone can join at any time. So there's like a bigger window of opportunity to like join in and tell your progress or something. However, like it's certainly the requirement for length of meeting doesn't really bear any what to say. It doesn't really solve anything in terms of relaying information if that's a sync meeting. So basically, you don't need a fixed amount of time to relay all the progress you had. So basically, length of sync meetings probably should depend on like whatever you are trying to actually tell, and fixed length meetings should be ones where we actually do something and work.
I think it might be worth talking about how exactly we handle the agenda, but we can talk about that offline as well. I actually wanted to make a point, and keep forgetting to because thanks, brain, that I would like the agenda to be more public, let's put it that way. I would like the agenda for a given call to be known before the call starts, so everybody can look at that and say, well, first, do I actually want to attend? Is that something that interests me? Especially for people that aren't actually on the team. That is probably useful for them. And also, so we can actually discuss the agenda itself before or between the meetings, rather than waiting for the meeting to start and then go, okay, what do we actually have to talk about? You're muted.
Oh, yes, I am. I briefly want to go to Cap's point as well. They mentioned the length of the meetings should depend on what there's to tell. I feel like that's kind of bad because, I mean, you can't block a variable amount of time out of your calendar. So I think it's at least good to have like a minimum fixed amount of time. But then if people have more time, they can stay longer. I think that's probably a good compromise.
And again,
I would probably agree.
expansive.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
Go ahead, sorry.
I would probably agree about like booking a maximum amount of time. Like, for instance, like you probably would like to not spend more than an hour on a sync meeting, whatever the case might be, the amount of data you're trying to sync. However, you probably would like to spend less than 10 minutes on a meeting where you don't have anything to sync. So that's pretty much what I'm talking about.
So I guess like having both a minimum and a maximum amount of time might be good then. So like minimum 15 minutes, so that we at least know all, let's say all the members at least are there, so people can reach the team at that specific time. And
that I mentioned.
But also maximum an hour for people to know that there won't be any discussions past that. I don't need to like block out more time after that.
Yeah, sounds nice.
And also any expansive topics that require extensive discussion, they can be handled separately, either offline on Discord or Matrix, or we can set up ad hoc calls for those for the people that are interested in that without blocking everybody else. But again, that requires an organized agenda, so we can actually still keep track of those things, even if not everybody attends them and we don't have unified notes about what's going on, aside from the main meetings that we're having.
So we can drop another path for that.
Yeah, but yeah, that in general sounds good. I'm gonna so just like half an hour for now, deciding this on the minimum meeting amount, and an hour for the maximum for now. We can change this later as well, but I think for now that would be good.
I'm okay with that.
All right, Robert, does that also work for you, since you're the other member here?
Sorry, I was looking at the RFC. What's the question?
Oh yeah, it's about shortening the meetings to like a minimum 30 minutes, but a maximum an hour, so that we don't, in general, take up half an hour, but not more than an hour if there's more to discuss.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right. All right, I want to get back to Chris's point about handling the agenda. So for now, up to now, there hasn't really been much of an agenda. It's been mostly like what people have been working on in the past week, giving any updates, maybe discussing the matrix, the points that have been brought up in matrix. Do we want to change that? Because well, from my point of view, the agenda is whatever has been discussed or kind of brought up in the past week.
That's kind of how it works anyway. I don't think that should replace any ad hoc discussion as it has been happening right now. That's obviously perfectly fine.
So, but I guess
about the meetings.
So yeah. So I guess you mean to maybe like, I don't know, a day before the meeting to kind of summarize all the things that have happened in the past week and to kind of say that we want to go over these tomorrow.
Yeah. And people can maybe say, okay, I don't think this is worth discussing, or hey, maybe we should talk about this other thing that you didn't notice. So at least we have a list of things that we need to go through, and that everybody is aware of that list before going to the meeting.
Yeah. All right. That sounds good to me.
I don't think we need any bespoke mechanism for that. We can probably just post them into the Matrix channel. And hey, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. You got anything to add or any comment before we go into it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Something came up. I have to leave now. Sorry.
Okay. Take care.
Unfortunately, but see ya. All right. Oh, NBP mentioned something in the Matrix channel. If you adopt variable length meetings, you should adopt fixed agenda ahead to avoid human ability to fill the gaps.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
It's basically what I've been talking about here. So we have a fixed list of things before the meeting starts, and we go through the points.
Oh,
and
right.
when we're done, we're done. We, in concept, is similar to the idea of a Scrum sprint. You decide what you do in the sprint. You don't get to add anything halfway through, and when you're done with that, we're done with it.
Brain will conjure up some off-topic. Will certainly will switch to.
And if something important comes up, then so be it. But in principle, try to stick to the agenda. That's the general idea.
Yeah, and I guess so. About the minimum meeting time, after that has passed, we can also say that the main agenda is over. Now if you have something else to discuss, feel free to stay. Otherwise, have a good day, something like that.
That sounds good.
And then, but I think we'll keep the recording going up to the point where everybody leaves. So we have the kind of discussions on record and.
Yeah, that is fine. Yeah.
All right. After agenda is discussed, wish a good. All right, but I think that's good then. I'm gonna change that to officially a 30 minutes. Well, I can't enter a variable amount of time in Google Calendar, so it's just gonna be 30 minutes for now.
Fine as a reference amount. Like expect to be here about 30, unless we have a bunch to talk about. It's all right.
All right, I'll do that then, and I'm gonna try to summarize things starting next week, like a day ahead.
Feel free to use some kind of collaborative editing thing if it helps you keep up with that.
Maybe from the Everpod or something.
I mean, I guess we can use the same meeting notes. Just like there is an entry there, like a chapter, just agenda there, where we could add entries.
Yes, either that or maybe garner some more engagement. Curse word, I hate it. Sorry. On Discourse by posting the tentative agenda on Discourse and letting people discuss there. Might even pick up a few people that aren't already in the Matrix. Maybe with a little hair like, hey, we do this every week. Feel free to drop by. Here's a link to the Matrix and so on.
Yeah, I like the idea. That sounds great.
And people can discuss in place because Discourse. That's kind of the point of the whole thing.
Yeah. And it also serves as like an announcement for the meeting the next day.
Yes, because I feel like there used to be a lot more noise here early on because people were excited about what this could be, and people have been dropping off as things didn't go the way they wanted. I figure it's worth reminding people that we're still here and also picking up a few new souls along the way. Hello, Tom.
Hello. Apologies.
It's probably at least worth trying to make some noise about that.
Yeah.
How you doing, Tom? You good?
Yeah. So just a brief summarization of the past 20 minutes. We decided to essentially shorten the meetings to 30 minutes, where at least all the members are trying to be there. So you can reach the members and we can sync during that time and go through the agenda, but having maximum meeting time of an hour. So it doesn't go over that. But yeah, officially it's going to be 30 minutes. I think that should be enough. And also the agenda, we decided to announce the agenda like a day ahead to write down all the points that maybe have been discussed in the past week or that have come up. And to also, Chris just made the suggestion to put the agenda on Discourse, so we get a bit more engagement. People can bring in their extra points they want to discuss, and also brings visibility to the meeting itself. So yeah, discourse agendas and short-term meetings essentially.
I think
Does that also
something flew over the radar. A request for co-working sessions, or like mob sessions, or something along that way. Because like we don't really have anything generating agenda right now, I think.
Yeah, it's mostly just whatever people have on their mind while they're here or in the Matrix, and whatever is bothering them or whatever they're working on. We do have a couple points that we keep on the GitHub, but I think as much as we've dropped by the wayside as out of focus or not yet, I think there is still a lot more that we could bring up and to try to discuss.
I think it would be nice to have like a mob session for writing RFCs or something.
Sure. I mean, I don't need our permission for any of that. If you want to organize some kind of co-working or pairing session with absolutely anyone here, feel free. We're still entirely community driven. We're just trying to organize the effort.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it's a very good idea to have like ad hoc discussions with other people, mob sessions, and then bring that up in the channel and on Discourse as well, anywhere the meetings.
If you do any of that, either by organizing it yourself or just participating with other people, what I would personally appreciate is just a couple of notes about what was brought up and bringing it here as a bit of a summary. That would actually be extremely valuable.
Yeah, I guess this brings me to a slightly related point, and that is kind of the organization of issues for this team. Where up to now there was this issue board which was really not properly maintained. I just kind of created that to put some things down. But given that how I laid out the kind of workings of this, where we kind of the end goal or the last step towards actually making a change is to actually make an RFC to the RFC repository and then make that go through. The thing I created with the auto-called packages RFC draft, where I just created the repository with the RFC draft in it, and then any points to discuss are just created as issues in there. And so that kind of gives a good kind of reference point to work on something together, where the repository, the main branch, is the state of the RFC. Once, I guess, all issues are addressed and the RFC is going to reach the final state, the thing is done and we can propose it as an actual RFC. And that feels very simple and might work better than the project board.
I kind of... It basically mimics Google Documents. Like they're trying to reinvent Google Doc.
Kind of. The thing with Google Doc is that it has a somewhat higher barrier to entry for public participation. It's closed by default, basically.
Yeah. True.
And we want these things to be as public as possible and as accessible as possible for everybody that wants to participate.
Then I would say probably have Everpods, which also have proper formatting. You can't comment on them, although you can write inline stuff. Also, you do have an ability to rewind all the changes you don't like.
Yeah. Right. The commenting on specific paragraphs is nice. But yeah,
But yeah,
it is. I feel like it's kind of not super important what the format is. People can it could also be that we start with an empty repository and the initial draft gets made as a PR. Then people can come and and review that PR individual sections. That might work.
Yeah. Bear in mind that what is essentially the deliverable for the process is a GitHub PR in the end through a proper RFC. So it's worth trying to, if we can, try to use the same process so we don't have to do any kind of conversion in the end.
Second.
Yeah. But yeah, it's. I think it's a. I mean, it's always kind of the question of what tools you use. But I think the making RC drafts in repositories is like not the worst thing. It should do fine, and people will make do with that.
Look, there are worse things in life than having to write some markdown in them.
Yes, having to write them in Emacs. No. All right, but yes, I think that sounds good for now.
If there are any specific points, like pain points in the process, as we come across them, I'm happy to discuss any other tooling that we might want to bring in.
Yeah. Oh, hey, John.
Hey.
Maybe we
Hello,
can
John.
quickly reach consensus on this. So instead of using a project board to track issues, let's just create RFC drafts in repositories, in GitHub repositories. Use issues to make changes, to suggest changes or PRs. And then once all issues are addressed and then everybody's happy, those repositories with the RFC drafts can be pushed to the actual RFC's repository as PRs there. Does that sound good to at least all the members? So, Chris?
I'm okay with that, and with the additional note of maybe making a point to link to all in progress RFCs that we've got going on in the discourse post that we discussed earlier.
Wait, I didn't quite get that.
We discussed earlier about posting on discourse the agendas and so on, along with the little stuff, you know, NIT, we do this, here's the matrix links, and also maybe make a point of linking to the RFC things, maybe to a repo or any active repos that are currently being discussed, so people know they exist and maybe go read them before we spend 6 months on one, and then suddenly nobody likes it because they didn't even know it exists.
Yeah, that sounds like a great suggestion. Let's do that. Tom, does that also sound good to you? General idea of using the repositories for RC drafts. All right. John, does it also sound good to you?
Are these RFC like Nix wide RFCs or like team RFCs? I'm not sure what RFCs we're talking about. Sorry.
So, for example, well, the autocalled packages RFC draft I created. It's this repository here. I'm linking it in the channel, where it's essentially the README is the RFC draft itself. And when there's something to change or people have a complaint about it, they can open issues to that repository. When someone wants to suggest change, open a PR. And once kind of all issues and PRs are addressed, it's mostly kind of done. And the kind of the net team has reached kind of a consensus on this, or we can reach consensus on it. And then after everything's done, we can make a PR to the actual RFC's repository with the draft we made in our team. Does that make sense? John? I'm assuming either network error
Oh, sorry, I hit the mute button.
Yeah,
I
doesn't
think
matter.
that makes sense. So we're just making a repo per draft PR to incubate everything and then send it off to the main one once it's ready.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And
All right.
that brings to mind the idea of well, I was already kind of treating the discourse post like it, but like if say I've been skipping a couple meetings for things happening, and everybody's going to be there at some point. How do we keep up to date with the current state of what the team is working on, especially given that our SCs are going to live in separate repos, so it's hard to keep a single place where like everything that we are supposed to be working on is reflected along with its state. Basically, project tracking. Let's bring management into this. That sounds like fun.
I feel like it might not be super necessary. Like you could go to the GitHub like organization page and just see the repositories that are active, and like you can sort by activeness of repositories.
Actually,
And that might be good enough just to know about them.
Aren't GitHub projects like the board thing, aren't they at the organization level now rather than the repo level? They changed that a little while ago, didn't they?
Yeah, it's possible. Well, there's also like old and like legacy projects and the beta projects thing. But yeah, it's possible on the org level now.
I'm just
The
going to make a
Nixos org
note
also uses that.
to look into that. Maybe I'll put in some work to try to keep one of those up to date with the current state of affairs, just so you can look at a single thing and see, okay, this is what's going on.
Yeah, we do have that, but I guess you can't really add entire repositories there. You can only add issues and PRs and notes. Well, maybe not.
I don't know.
But yeah, feel free to look at that.
I'll make a note to look into like that, just to make life easier for everybody.
Yeah. All right, but I think that's well, we talked half an hour about administrative stuff. Yes, has to be done occasionally. I do want to quickly go to the kind of stand-up part of this.
Yes.
So I want to go last, but does anybody else have something they want to update about from last week? Maybe let's do like rounds here, asking at least the members specifically. But Chris, do you have anything?
Nothing specifically relating to the NAT.
All right, sounds good. Tom?
I've been looking at the auto call proposal, but in terms of my intention was to try to play with that and test that with the Lazy Trees branch, but I've not done that assessment yet.
Yeah, sounds good. John, do you have anything to update?
I don't. I've been on vacation off my computer for the past week or so. I did miss meetings before that, but I don't think I've done anything relevant for this group. Just been making those other Nix RFCs, which are about Nix itself. And
Oh yeah, I saw some of those. Nice work. But yeah, sounds good.
I guess I'm
All
glad
right,
we are. Yeah, obviously that doesn't need to, clutter this team. But I'm glad we are making RFCs in general, because I think, the more we do with the RFC process community wide, the better. Keep that thing going.
Yeah, I agreed. RFCs are probably the best thing that happened to Nix.
Yep.
All right. I want to quickly mention what I did last week. On Friday, I created like using kind of very debugger. I created very a kind of rough draft of the auto called packages transformation. just using like some bash, some ripgrep, some set to update all packages.nix, stuff like that. And after some tweaking of regexes and stuff, I did not appreciate that, but it kind of worked. And I was able to move all the files into like packages/auto directory, and updating the all packages.nix, it's shrunk to like 16,000 lines, the all packages.nix, only containing the definitions that can't be transformed automatically. And that actually makes GitHub be able to render the file, which is very good at least. Unfortunately, the evaluation doesn't work because there's a lot of file paths that are referenced from Nix files that need updating, and those, it turns out it's quite a lot. I haven't made any like measurements how many there are, but I imagine there's lots. And so my kind of next step I want to look into is writing a tool to do this transformation automatically. So essentially, think of it like a MV command, but Nix specific, where it updates any references to the file that's being moved in the current repository or something like that. And this is both useful for this RFC, but also just useful in general in the Nix world. Like you can move files without worrying about breaking any file references. Also, it allows us to kind of easily test out various approaches. So we might do the move one way, do the flat file hierarchy, do some measurements, but do it another way with like the sharding approach, the prefix approach. So yeah, I think I guess I'm just kind of trying to maybe get some feedback. Like, do you think that's the question of it being over engineering? Like, is such a tool really necessary? Could I just do it with like some hacky bash scripts? Is that better? Or I don't know. What do you think?
I think it might be worth hacking it for now, unless there's like a sort of existing frameworky thing that you want to leverage. Like if I don't know, if HNix or whatever is the Rust thing that people use for the formatter and fix, if one of those is like up to the challenge, excellent. But if you'd have to like hand roll something from scratch, then I think then it's not worth the effort.
Yeah, the idea would be to use the RNix parser to do this, and it doesn't have any like built-in notion of like tracking file references used by Nix. And it turns out the problem is like not entirely trivial because it really depends on like how Nix evaluates and imports files and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, well then that sounds. I mean, that sounds good actually. Then, and maybe if there's the best case is something you can upstream to that isn't just like the functionality to do this one thing, but makes this sort of thing easier going forward into the RNIC parser. So yeah, I'm for it then.
You can probably look into Twig's implementation of RNix parser. It's at least maintained right now.
That's a fork of it?
Twix is actually an alternative Nix implementation.
Or I mean, like, are they using the Nix parser, or did they fork our Nix parser?
They forked it, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I will check that out then. Yeah.
Yeah, I did check out Twix last week. Looks interesting at least. Yeah, and if they have some like, so you mainly, I guess, mean using like checking out the fork of RNix parser to see if that has like any relevant changes that would be useful.
Yeah, if the original doesn't get you everything you want, maybe the fork would. I mean, I also hope there's only one version of the library going forward. There's some, if one's abandoned, then the other sort of takes over by default. If neither is abandoned, then there's some reconciliation.
Yeah.
Well, I think original Arnix parser maintainer died relatively recently.
Oh,
So-
shit.
Damn.
Yeah. There's an update on this in the Arnix parser repository, but it is a really nice project. So I'm glad it's being maintained going forward. Right. So, all right. But yeah, that sounds good. I'll look at the TVix. How do you say that? Is it TVix or Twix?
I think it's Twix. At least,
all right, that sounds.
TVix
That sounds like the
like a
candy,
90s
so that's
rapper.
good.
Oh, it was Redox guy. Sorry, I'm just figuring out.
I think
all right, but
Vincent
yeah,
actually called it Twix.
The first blog
Yeah,
post talks
that's
about how it's pronounced. But I've heard them say it in video calls.
Mhm. All right. So yeah, that sounds good. I'll look into that. Maybe just like a quick. No, I can ask that in the channel. That's good. All right. So that's what I did. Anybody else want to update anything? I think we didn't hear anything earlier.
Just during this call, I made an issue in the repo about related work. There's this ancient Nixpkgs fork called Triton that did this, so I feel like that's worth mentioning. I'm also curious what Geeks does. I have no idea. But I suspect it's something more like this than what Nixpkgs currently does.
Where did you create an issue?
I thought I did it in the RC repo. I hope I didn't do it in the wrong repo. Fucking tuning around with my phone.
Oh, in the
Autocall.
RC draft for autocall packages.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right, Triton and Geeks. I haven't checked out Triton in a long time. Doesn't seem to maintain anymore, but still it'd be good to check them out, yeah.
Those things are always destined to die. But I like to think, why did they feel like they had to fork in the first place? And, you lose an active contributor when someone does that. So it's good to kind of do the post-mortem anyways. And who knows, maybe we'll draw them back out of retirement.
There's always something to learn from that, even if it inevitably dies, because they're alone and then they burn out. That's just how that goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, personally, I feel like a lot of people are kind of forking Nix and Nixpkgs because it's just kind of messy, and there's things that could be done a lot better there. At least this team is an effort to fix the Nixpkgs side. So
yeah. And by the way,
we'll get a bit less of that.
I missed all the meetings when it was discussed before, and I think it's a good first RFC. Very tractable, very popular. The right amount of splash.
Yeah, I agreed. Thanks.
We could do a lot worse.
I hope we do a lot worse.
We'll get there.
There's a lot of things I'd like to change in Nixpkgs. Also, I guess the So like with the RC, I did this transformation to all packages where all the kind of trivial call package calls are now automatically done. But all the others, so there's like a couple different variants of more complicated calls. One of these is where versions are overridden with more specific ones. So you do a call package, but then you say Python equals Python 3 to kind of say it should be built with Python 3 while still maintaining the overrideability of the Python attribute. You could change the argument to Python 3 itself in the function, but then people would have to know, oh, if I want to override Python for this specific package, I need to use Python 3 in the .override. And so that at least has some use cases. But this kind of goes into a separate thing where there's a separate issue for this team where we want to have a better way to require and specify versions in Nixpkgs. The whole thing about version, how versions are mapped to attributes, which is really messy right now. And I hope that this can get done in a separate issue where we fix this in one go, and then we can hopefully also find a way to integrate that with the autocalling so that we can get rid of all those version-specific overrides. And that's ideas like there's some other patterns in all packages which would also be addressed by other issues of this team. So that's kind of my hope, to eventually get rid of this all packages file mostly completely and fix it with other issues.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I really like the way that by removing all the boring ones, it allows just a casual maintainer to sort of see more easily what like boilerplate remains. So we can just keep on attacking essentially the lowest hanging fruit as different fruits become the lowest hanging once you've plucked the previous lowest hanging one. So there's a very like sort of natural triage, starting with this and then going to that and then going to another section.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else to discuss. Is there something else someone wants to bring up or bring to the table? All right. That sounds great. So I think let's end the meeting early here then. Right, Tom is mostly interested in mob sessions. Well, that's great.
Yes. To reiterate what I said earlier, anyone can just go do that. You don't need anyone's permission or any kind of official sanctioning or whatever. Just go do it. Let us know what you've done.
I guess.
Okay.
I guess would someone here at least be interested in kind of when I work on this tool for like updating file references with a move in Nix or on the arc scene other ways to just kind of join in to work on this bit together to give some feedback while I do that?
Yeah, why not?
Depends on my
Thomas'
availability
thumbs
of
up.
that, but yeah, sure.
All right. Well, in that case, I guess I can like I can like announce this in the channel when I do this, so can join in the meeting and people could hop on board.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds
good.
So till next time.
Yeah. So that sounds good. Thanks for joining, everybody, and until next time then.